Welcome. My name is Barb Brady, and on behalf of the Branch County Republican Party, we want to welcome you tonight. We also want to thank Representative Kim Kurtz, Congressman Tim Walberg's wife, Sue Walberg, who will be keeping time, making sure you all don't go over your time allotment. Ken Delaney, who's going to be our moderator, and Representative Mike Shirkey for all the advertising that he has helped us with for this event. Let's give them all a big round of And now can we call Representative Ken Kurtz back up, because he would like to say a few words before Ken Delaney takes over for the program. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here, and wow, what a wonderful group that is here. It only shows to me that you want to be a part of what the future is in the great state of Michigan. Amen. You've honored me with the ability to be able to be a part of that. We're not here to judge me. I'm so glad that Mrs. Walberg was given instructions to keep timing of the others. Notice this time it was not my timing. But I feel very indebted with the possibility to know that there's 100. Where's Representative Mike Shirkey? Where's he at? Will you come up and set by Mrs. Walberg? Okay. Mike Shirkey will be my candidate for Senate, and he's kind of quiet right now, but we're going to do it. Let's make him our candidate, okay? Out of one, and I serve with Mike in the legislature. I have for the last 4 years, and it's been my pleasure and privilege, and I look forward to him serving us brilliantly in the coming next 8 years. Only 110 Michiganders have the opportunity to represent nearly 10 million people in our great state in the House of Representatives. And it seems as though I've been asked to just warm you up for tonight's main event. That's these that are here. The past 6 years have gone by very, very fast for me. I'm grateful, humbled to have been chosen back in 2008 to be your state representative. The good, the bad, and the ugly, I've worn with pride to some degree. There's never been a day that I ever got up to leave Coldwater in the morning that I said I wish I didn't have to go. Doesn't mean that every day was a day I was anxious for what we were going to face. But we've not missed a day to go there to be whatever we ought to be, and I'm so grateful for that. The questions sometimes come up, and you're going to consider this because I am. Are we better off today than when I went into office? Yes, I definitely believe we are. Are we all the way there yet? Of course not. And there's a long ways to go in many respects. Specifically in the last 4 years, we have made great strides. It has not been comfortable for many, but I believe we're on the way, and it must continue. And the one that you select is going to help that continuing, I believe. There's only 3 things that could derail what's happening in Michigan, in my opinion, because I've been there, I see it, I know it. It's apathy on your part to not be involved. It's that people's personal agendas get in the way of what's right for Michigan. And it's also forgetting or ignoring what took place to get us to where we were. Governor Snyder does very well at saying it's not about the past, but may we as a people, because we're human, may we understand what got us into trouble when we began spending more money than we took in. And we were so willing to put a debt upon future generations, and we ignored the liability that was there. That's a part of what's being troubled. I want to say something about myself, and just quickly something for the folks up here. And since my pastor's here, I'm not going to try to preach, okay? Some said that I have a tendency to do that. Folks, when I first became a candidate, one of the first questions was asked, what are your core values? See, I believe that's important. My core values were at that time in 2008, not necessarily in this order, but I want to tell you, they were the life of the unborn. They were our Second Amendment rights and it was the fact that marriage is between a man and a woman. I have not changed my position in the last 6 years. I am still, for life, our Second Amendment in marriage is between a man and a woman. I will stay there. Some of these other areas, I did get a little biblical, Pastor. I said, come now, let us reason together. Because I think that's important. The qualities most representatives would desire to have and should have. And when they have those core values, the qualities that come out of a respected representative is this. They are a person of discipline. They're a person of values. They're one who has self-confidence. They're willing to serve, and maybe one of the keys, and I think is so important in this time, they know the importance of good, solid relationships with those that they serve with. Be assured you can't. I want each one of you to know, you already know this, because I already told you, each one of you, I think. You're not going to please everybody. And I'll guarantee you, we could go out in this group right now, and there are going to be some people who say, Ken, I really didn't agree with that. But I want to thank you for the respect that you gave me, even when you couldn't agree with the position I took. I thank you for that. I have some prized possessions from serving. Let me just tell you two of them, will you? One of them was the letter I got, not long after I'd been there, that was simply said this in the sentences there, and I hung it in my office to remind me. The letter went something like this: I didn't vote for you, and I'll never vote for you again. I'm keeping that one. And then I like the letter that I got one time that said, you always vote with the majority. Now, I know what they really meant because I know that individual. They're not here tonight, but or I'd call them out if they were. They did say this. I know what they meant. You always vote with the Republicans. I thought, what a shame. I guess that was on the billboard that you used to see that was blue and white that I was a Republican. Has it always been that way? No, to be honest with you. There have been times I could not go along even with my caucus on an issue. I was given the respect to not vote with them and the understanding, and I understood where they were going. A legislator should never be known as a puppet that's on some string, especially in what we do. I want you to also remember, folks, as these, whichever one it is, goes there and legislation comes up and you hear about it, legislation always, and I'm sure that Representative Shirkey will tell you, legislation is always a moving project. I can think of very few times that a piece of legislation came up that was once announced that that's the way it ended up. So give us time, will you, to work through the proper way. In closing, I'm going to be forever grateful for the opportunity that you gave me to serve. Your continued respect, even in times of not agreeing with some of my votes that I felt was right for the state, you've given me that, and I do appreciate it sincerely. After all I've witnessed and seen while serving this last 6 years, I will say unequivocally, because I've gotten to know a lot more Michigan, been growing up here and being here the whole time. I know a lot of Michigan. I have served, without a doubt, 2 counties that are the best in the state of Michigan, and I compliment you, the way you live, the way you act, the way you believe, and the way you care for one another. I say thank you for letting me serve you. I'd rather be here than any other county in the state of Michigan or any other area. Now for the candidates before Mrs. Wahlberg holds up my sign, and I know she's just sitting there like this right now. That really made her cringe. Candidates, and I call you candidates because I don't really see nor have I sense that you've been opponents to one another. You've been candidates for this job, and I compliment you on that. But please be in mind, there are a whole lot of people out here that have been watching you and that are watching you. It sounds like a father talk, doesn't it? Listen up, Tim.
Yeah.
They're following you, they're evaluating you, and they're talking to you. I'm going to ask you to listen to them in this last week. Do your best by them if they choose you. Honor their confidence and do your best to get around and see them as often as you can. They'll never understand why you can't be at everything. So with that, I just want to say it's been an honor to serve, and I'm going to miss doing this. And I'm not going yet. I got about 4 months to go, and so I'll try not to do any damage while I'm here, or while I'm left. One thing, Mrs. Wahlberg, I planned this all the time. As I say goodbye and thank you, I'm going to go this. Well done, sir. Well done.
Well, Ken has served us well for the last 6 years, and whoever the candidate that comes out of this group, I'm sure will do the same for the next 6 years, we hope, Ian Lansing. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Ken Delaney, market manager, morning guy at WTVB Radio here in Coldwater. Formerly, actually, the chair of the Branch County Republican Party for 4 years, and actually been there and done that because 12 years ago, I was in your seat.
Got the t-shirt and everything.
A whole bunch of yard signs if you still want them. But I've been in your seat before, so I know what you guys are going through. You're counting down probably the minutes right now and the seconds. But at the same time, it's a very important time for you. Out of this audience here, except for the ones probably that have the t-shirts on, how many still believe they're undecided before next August 5th election? All right. So for candidates, that's the challenge for you tonight and for the next 8 days or 7.5 days to get out, get the word out, get your message out, and we hope to do that tonight. This isn't a gotcha forum. We have some prepared questions for the candidates. They don't know what they are, but we do have some questions that our committee put together to give them an opportunity so you can get a sense of where they're coming from. We'll allow them ground rules, 2-minute opening statement each, 4 to 5 questions, but they'll all get the same question. They'll have 2 minutes to answer it. If you don't want the 2 minutes, give it up at that point. Ms. Wahlberg will be giving you the time commands on that too, to give you a countdown on that so you know how much time you have left. And I do reserve the right for a quick follow-up if there's something that doesn't make sense or maybe that you got yourself in a corner that we can quickly clear up at the very end too. And then a 1-minute closing statement for each one of you. With the whole idea being, we want to know about you, where you stand on the issues, and what you will do for us when you get elected and go to Lansing. So. The assumption is that it'll be Republican, by the way, so just a hint anyway. So with that, we will pass the microphone around for the candidates. We have a couple of them here that we'll be passing around, so I'll maybe be reaching away from you. We won't necessarily go in the same order as we go, but everybody will get a fair shot at answering first and toward the middle, so we want to make sure that we don't just go straight down the line with that. But within that, we'll look for opening statements here from the candidates, and we'll start actually right here to my left. Tim Harthaver over time. And you just leave the microphone on the whole time. If you want to stand, you can do that. That's probably the best so people can see you. The mics are fairly loud so you don't have to scream into them, but we'll do that. Opening statements we want from all the candidates is tell us about yourself, why you're running, and why you're qualified for the job. 2 minutes.
Well, my name is Tim Hart-Haverhill, and to clear up something real quick, so people say Hart-Haverhill. Hart is a family name that I've used in media for over 30 years now, and so to legally run for office, I need my full name, and Haverhill is my last name. This is the first time that I'm running for office, but I'm very excited about it because I've been involved in our community. I'm involved in our church, I'm involved in activities that go on, whether it's Right to Life or whether it's sporting activities. And I think it's important that as a state representative, that you listen to people, you learn from people, you understand what they're about. And I think that I've done that for 30 years, and I'm excited about that. A small businessman who started my business from scratch, Q1 Video and Q1 Broadcasting. In our business, we have a chance to go all over the state of Michigan. I've worked with small mom and pop businesses in Morley, Michigan, a gun shop up there, doing some marketing and promotion for them. To companies like Brembo in Homer, to Alaris in Coldwater. And so what that affords me is a chance to see big business, small business, because one of the things that we have to do is we need to grow our economy. To grow our tax base, you grow your economy. You don't tax your way out of problems. And so those are some of the different aspects when it comes to business. I have 4 sons. My wife, Pam, of 27 years. I have full support of my family for running for office. I'm a strong communicator. When you go to Lansing, you're one of 110. So you better know your facts. You better know both sides of the story. So when somebody asks you a question, you got the answer and you can back up your answers that way. And you better be able to communicate so that you get at least 55 other people to go with you to get some things accomplished. And as I go about and talk to people all throughout the community, it does put a smile on my face because, you meet a lot of wonderful people and people that really care about what's going on here in the great state of Michigan. And I will tell you, again, I will listen, I will learn, I will understand, and I'll be there for the citizens of Branch and Hillsdale County. I'll be there for you. Thanks.
Jack.
Hello everyone, it's great to be here tonight. My name is Jeff Jacks, I'm from Jonesville. Real brief background, I was born in Coldwater, grew up in Jonesville, attended Jonesville High School, Hillsdale College on a track scholarship. Graduated with a degree in economics. I worked in Washington, D.C. for a short while and then returned back here where I've been involved running several different businesses. Everything from retailing clothing and shoes to residential construction and excavation. What I believe most acutely qualifies me to pursue this seat is the 10.5 years I spent running Evergreen Estates in Jonesville. We were a 108-home retirement community. That's over 100 families, over 100 distinct personalities in a very small geographical location. Just keeping everyone getting along was enough of an education. However, I've also had the opportunity to be both the employee and the employer. I've been the guy in the bottom of the hole on a Sunday night in February at midnight fixing the broken water line, and the guy behind the desk shuffling the papers back and forth, working with the village, the county, and the state on a plethora of regulations, taxes, permitting, licensing, fees, and everything in between. So when I say I sincerely understand what the small business person goes through day in and day out, I sincerely do. I'm a good conservative. I believe in defending life, defending the Constitution, defending the Second Amendment. I also believe in retaining and expanding liberty and freedom, something I believe we are losing fairly quickly right now, and that is concerning. My time in business, along with my degree, has instilled within me a belief that we can keep taxes low, reduce regulation, create a business-friendly environment to encourage businesses and entrepreneurs to invest, to expand, and to most importantly, add to our tax base, which is what is important in buttressing our small communities. We have to grow our way out of this. We cannot tax our way out of it. 35 years old, I like to think that's old enough to have the experience, yet young enough to have the energy and the fresh ideas to pursue this seat. So I appreciate being here tonight, and thank you.
Brad Benson.
Good evening, everyone. Again, I'm Brad Benson, and my wife Pam and I, we live on a small farm in very southern Hillsdale County. 30 years ago, in fact, 30 years ago this Saturday, I unlocked the front door and turned on the lights in a appliance store in Hillsdale. And for the past 30 years, I have owned and operated an appliance store. And I'm just a blue-collar guy who comes out to your house and either delivers you a new appliance or fixes the one you already got there. And every morning I get 9 puzzles to solve. And hopefully that we have positive outcomes from them. Giving back to the community over the years through the Jaycees and the Kiwanis Club. I've been president of both those organizations. And I'm a firefighter, medical first responder with my local fire department, Station 13 Woodbridge Township Fire Department, again, in very southern Hillsdale County. My wife and I, on our farm, we have about 70 goats. And we are founding members of the Hillsdale County Farmers Market, and have been very, very involved in the agriculture community over in Hillsdale County and here in Branch County over the years. So 6 years ago, I was elected to the Hillsdale County Board of Commissioners and have served in a number of different functions as a county commissioner. Anything from being liaison to the County Road Commission and sitting through about 100 road commission meetings, getting a pretty good feel for what makes road ticks in Michigan, how we fund them, where the deficits are there, what the problems are driving funds down to the local level. And that really is the problem with roads, is trying to get the money down to the local level where we have the most miles of roads and the most expensive ones. I've also been the finance chair of the Board of Commissioners and overseen the county budget. First year we did that, we were able to reduce spending by about 3.5%, the second year by about 4.5%. And I currently represent the Human Services Committee, and that can be anything from our Tri-County Health Department right here in Branch County, Hillsdale County, and St. Joseph County, Community Mental Health Board, and also our Community Action Agency, which does the early childhood education, which I know is a big program with the governor. Again, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak this evening.
Next, Rochelle Ray.
Hi, I'm Rochelle Ray, and I grew up on a 496-acre dairy farm. I know how to milk cows, which is a dying art. I then went to Michigan State University, graduated with a degree in mechanical engineering, was a mechanical engineer for a number of years, worked on some fantastic projects, but the recession of the 80s came. So my husband and I, we both went to seminary. We started ministry actually in 1978 with our youth group. And in 1985, we became full-time clergy. We really got tired of moving. We have 4 children. We will have been married 35 years this year. But we have 4 children, and we really got tired of moving. We really, really got tired of moving. And so we settled here, and we've been here for about 19 years. Is that right? Yeah. It's been a joy to be here, and we do a lot of things together. We are 4-H leaders. I worked on the Alpha Omega board. Also worked with school. If you are part of Jonesville's community schools and you watch their plays, a lot of those costumes were Becky Schermerhorn and my creations. So we've had a lot of fun. We just do a lot of things in our community. I'm running because the Michigan that I grew up with was strong, and the Michigan that I see now is experiencing things like a brain drain. We're experiencing lesser quality of jobs. These things are unacceptable. We have two of our children are working in Ohio because Michigan does not have the opportunity any longer to offer those kinds of jobs. And we went from 18% manufacturing jobs to 10% manufacturing jobs from 1990 until now. And these are things that disturb me. I would like to leave to my children and to your children a stronger Michigan. So that's why I'm running. Thank you very much.
Next, Al Donahue.
Good evening. Glad to see all of you. I am better known in the community almost as Abraham Lincoln. I walk down the streets often and people say, look, there goes Abe. And I got to be known that way the last 6 years. And ironically, that is what has drawn me to this point today. 6 years ago, as I would walk in parades with Ken Kurtz, helping him to get elected, people would point at me and say, we wish you were running for president again. I knew they weren't talking about Hal. But a year ago, someone said that same thing to me right after the heels of saying that Ken was term limited. They said, we wish you were running for office. And I laughed out loud because I thought they were talking about Abe again. And they said, no, we're not talking about Abe, we're talking about Hal. So I proceeded to ask them why, and the number of things that they told me why, I said, I'll at least consider it because I had never considered it before. I've been happy working in my church. I've been happy working at the jobs I work in, 2 or 3 at a time to feed my family. But I said I'll at least consider it and pray about it. After thinking and praying about it for several months, I couldn't get away from my own words as I represented Abraham Lincoln to the community, saying, you need to be involved. You need to be active, whether it's in the voting booth, or if it's in your office, telling people that the nonsensical ideas that are mainstream today are inaccurate, and you need to be working through the issues with people. You need to be involved in making sure your family has something to live for and to be strong in. And so that is why I'm running. My wife and one of my children's back there. I've got 6 others at home. And they are another reason why I'm running, because like several others have said, I want to see a stronger Michigan, and I believe I can help us get there.
Thank you all for being here. It's very heartening for us to see so much community interest, and a little humbling. Thank you, Branch County Republicans, for organizing this. Thank you, Ken Kurtz, wherever you are. In variety shows, they say you never want to follow children or animals because it's a tough act to follow. We must be crazy for wanting to follow Ken Kurtz, but here we are. This is a good time for me to tell you that I won't be at the Branch County Parade on Saturday because my youngest daughter, who some of you have met over here, is getting married at exactly 2 o'clock that day. So, otherwise, thank you very much. Shout out for marriage. I'm also going for the sympathy vote. My name is Eric Leuthäuser. I'm better known as the Buick GMC dealer in Hillsdale. I'm running because I believe in the principles that made America great are the opportunities that we have to learn, to earn, and to serve. I was raised to think that we all have a great opportunity to have a public education for free. We all have the ability to earn a living if we so apply ourselves. And that along with that opportunity comes the obligation to serve. And so whether it's through the church, through your school, through a service organization like the Rotary Club, Community Foundation, these things I've been involved in, we all have an opportunity and an obligation here to grab an oar and to help our country along. Why I'm running, I just explained the timing is crucial. And that's because now we need to keep this momentum going that Kim referred to. We've got an opportunity to be honest about the budget, honest about unfunded liabilities, honest about social values, honest about the costs that these things are taking on our state and on our communities and on our families and the bedrock, that made this country great. So I want to be part of that honest conversation. I want to be a good representative for Branch and Hillsdale, and I ask for your vote. Thank you.
And our final opening statement from Stephen Besson.
Thank you. Greetings, my name is Stephen Besson. I'm out of Litchfield, Michigan. My introduction is going to be a little bit different. For over 10 years, many professors, pastors, politicians have urged me to become a politician. And while I was studying in my most recent master's degree, I prayed and fasted the direction that God would lead me in, and He led me in this direction. And now that I'm done with my schooling, the time is right, and I'm ready to serve. And as a Christian, God calls us to serve, and that means serving people. It also means conducting yourself with honesty and integrity. And as a student, I received high grades, I had many academic awards, and graduated with highest honors. My earned degrees are in mathematics, theology, and religion. As an athlete, I participated in many sports throughout my life and had awards in pretty much all of them. As a candidate for government leadership, which is probably what you're looking for the most, my most prominent concern is that of the moral degradation and the intellectual hijacking of our nation. And it seems like all of our issues, they stem from the weakness of mankind's desires and his will to try and implement and receive them. And as a consequence, as you probably have seen, most of us experience that we suffer at the hands of the choices that are made by the few. I've listened to a lot of people, I've talked to a lot of people, and it seems like the most prominent concern that I see is the integrity of our elected representatives. And the last statistics that I consulted, over 80% of Americans believe that integrity and morality is our primary concern, especially those of our leaders. And I believe, in my opinion, it is time that we start seeking, when we're looking for politicians, it's time we start seeking the most important part, and that's the hidden person of the heart, who they are. And we cannot we cannot expect to experience any changes in our society, in the system, in our culture, until we begin to look at, I've got a lot to say, but thank you for your time, and I think in the end, the heart of the problem is the problem of the heart, and we need to take a closer look at that.
Thank you for all the opening statements from the candidates. Give us a little overview of where you're at and where you're coming from now. Let's get to some of the specific questions that we developed in our committee. You've all given a little bit about yourselves, why you think you're qualified to represent us in Lansing. What we're looking for now is, if there's one signature issue for you that you want to address when you get to Lansing, what is it? And we'll start with Michelle Ryan.
Wow, that's an awesome question. I think that the first thing that I would like to see us do is in education, we need to make a better transition for our students as they come out of high school into either college, career technical education, or business. And this is something that we already have the legislation in place, we already have the people in place, but we're not taking advantage of being able to use that time that students have in high school wisely and well, and give them the opportunity to explore more different avenues, different career fields. This is one of the things that I would like us to see focus on a little bit more. Another thing that I think needs to happen with education is we need to diverge or take a tangent away from the idea that we have to test everything and start to get back to actually teaching practical things that students can use in life. And these are two of the areas that I would like to really work on in education. Thank you.
I'm just going on the line of the table here on this one. So Hal, again, what's that one signature issue for you in Lansing?
I would say that's somewhat of a broad question in the sense that, and I would answer it this way. There are a couple of things in government that I would like to see change, and that is the dependence. Whether you're talking about personally or even as a state, we have become very dependent as a people. We depend on the government for our daily living as an individual, and as a state, we have become dependent on the federal government for a lot of things, whether it's our roads or our state education. And I think we need to start becoming self-sufficient. So one of the reasons we have Common Core in our state is because many legislators bought into it so that they could get to the federal money. If we had said no to the federal money, we wouldn't be having the discussions we have right now about Common Core. I would like to repeal Common Core. And I don't have all this detail worked out because I told you a minute ago, up until a year ago, I had not decided to run for politics. But I know this much. I think as a state, we should start saying no to the federal government for money that they're willing to offer us. So in a general sense, I don't have any specifics on which area I'm going to attack, but I would like to start saying no. And start saying, let's take care of this ourselves. And that comes down to the local level as well. Education, roads, business, all is dealt best when you deal with it on a local level. And so I'd like to generate that kind of a focus from Lansing and let it come down so that we as a people locally can take care of our own business.
Mark, signature issue for you.
There are some big issues that need to be dealt with, and they need to be dealt with on a sustained basis for a generation. It can't be a signature issue for Eric Loygois or anyone else up here. It's going to take a generation to work through $50 billion in unfunded liabilities. It's going to take a generation to work through a generation of unfunded or underfunded roads. It's going to take a generation, perhaps, to work through all the unfunded pensions and so forth. I don't want to be gloom and doom, but these are big things that we need to have grown-up conversations about. And those will continue. It would be a signature issue for anyone if they could be part of the solution to those and go to work on that and keep the momentum going that's in place. Two other things. For a single discrete issue, I would say it would be a reform of the automobile insurance law that we have in the state. As a car dealer, I have intimate knowledge of that. People come and buy cars and they say, why in the world is your insurance so much higher than it is in Indiana or Oklahoma or wherever I came from? And it would just be a natural fit to be part of that solution. And so that's a single discrete signature issue, if you will. But the other big issue I want to address before my time's up is we're very fortunate in the state that we've made a lot of progress on what I would call social issues. You know, we have a definition of traditional marriage in our Constitution. We have made tremendous strides in right to life. If you were here in this room a few months ago for the Right to Life dinner, you know of the successes that we've had. incremental, step by step, steady, never giving up, and we've made tremendous results, had tremendous results because of that. So we need to legislatively lock down some of those gains that we've made in those traditional values so that judges and future legislatures can't undo the great work that we've done here in the last few years. Thank you.
Stephen Besson, signature issue for you in Lansing, you're elected.
I believe I touched on it in my introduction. My most prominent concern is the moral degradation of our society in general. And for many reasons, it's much more peaceful when you have a lot of good people around you. Secondly, when you look at it from an economical standpoint, societies that are good are societies that are prosperous. When families stick together, they're not divorcing, they're not having issues, then societies and economics, all of that tends to go up. When you have the family structure that sticks together, you have academic statistics. There's tons of it out there that shows that students perform better in school. Students have less problems. Children have less issues that they deal with. That's from a psychological standpoint, physical standpoint. There's a lot of issues that they end up dealing with. So I think morality is a big issue. Now, you might be thinking, where does that come from? Okay, let's look at it at the flip hand perspective. If God does not exist, okay, first we need God to have morality. But if God does not exist, then there's no such thing as a moral lawmaker. If there's no such thing as a moral lawmaker, there's no such thing as a moral law. And if there's no such thing as a moral law, there's no set of objective right or wrong. So in other words, anything is permissible, anything goes, anything is acceptable. And then you start to get into a society like Russia, which made it decline. You get into a society like Germany before it declined. I believe that we need to restore the principles our founding fathers set forth, the reasons why they put them forth, why we used the Bible to set up a lot of the laws that we have, and why it was the guiding basis for our country. And one of the things that's fascinating to me is if you look in the past, the Supreme Court, believe it or not, judged this twice with over, I think on one instance over 80 precedents and on another instance over 90 precedents, that the Bible should be used as the moral grounds of teaching for children in schools. And then in the 1960s, I think it was about 1962, about that time, the Supreme Court then ruled with no precedent, in other words, no evidence, that the Bibles were being taken out of schools in America. Thank you.
Slide back down to this end of the table here, and Brad Benzing, your signature issue if you're elected in Good Lansing.
Did anyone hear the unemployment figures for the district this week? Ticked upward, 8.5%. While we continue to hear about the recovery in Michigan, we've done a very, very good job over the past few years in moving Michigan forward. However, employment remains a primary concern. I own an appliance store. The average age of appliance technicians in America is 53. That means in 10 years, there's not going to be any of us left because there's nobody behind us. But even scarier, for those of you on a Sunday afternoon when you have 20 people over, the average age of plumbers is 60. I worked recently for the owner of a manufacturing business who ran an ad for a tool maker, and he has a very successful manufacturing business. The youngest person that applied was 50 years old. We have a problem with technically skilled people in Michigan. It's not a lack of jobs, it's a lack of quality, trained people to fill them. Right now, there are 80 welding jobs available across the district. About 15 bucks an hour to start, and they're direct hire jobs. Nobody to fill them. So, my premier issue is to simply bolster the ability, starting at the high school level, to work on curriculums so that consequently high school students can get into career and technical education, moving on to community colleges and career centers, and to bolster them to make sure that the funding is in place and that government stays out of the way and makes it possible for people to go into those good paying careers which can bolster Michigan's economy. Thank you.
Jeff Jacks.
I would like to sit here all evening long and discuss the cultural issue involved, where only about 20 years ago, a community would pull together and they donate the lumber, they donate the labor, they have a bake sale and put together a church or put together a community building or even a library. Now, people sit down and write grants to the government. But culturally, that's difficult to go to Lansing and legislate. So what can you go to Lansing and do? Ultimately, I think you need to cut taxes every opportunity you can. Why is that important? Because capital is the lifeblood of the economy. It's the lifeblood of the economy that turns around, allows businesses to expand, allows businesses to hire, and then in turn adds to our tax receipts in the long run. Again, we need to grow our way out of this. So every opportunity there is to cut taxes, I'm favorable to cut taxes. I think we can put $1 billion, $1.2 billion into the roads without raising taxes, and we need to do it. I think we can reform no-fault insurance to get the premiums down, put money in people's pockets. Again, they're spending it, they're consuming. Every opportunity we can across the board to cut taxes, that is important, because the individual actors in their homes, in their businesses, are always going to spend their money in a more efficient, better way than big government always will. So look at property tax. In what situation does it make sense that people be penalized for improving their properties? You turn around, you build a deck, you paint your house, you put in new carpet, you put in a new driveway, and you get hit with a higher tax bill. So ultimately, we need to take a look at each one of these punitive taxes. We need to clean the system up. We need to put money back in people's pocket. And I'm completely open to completely redesigning the tax structure, even if that means moving toward something like a consumption-based tax like the fair tax. Anything that can create more efficiency in the market and be fairer to people is a good thing. Thank you.
And finally, Tim Hart-Haverhill.
Okay, well, I really don't have one signature item, but I will talk about 3 quick items here for you. Number 1, they talk about education and career technical education. Well, first of all, the Michigan Merit Curriculum needs some flexibility. Right now, our students have to take Algebra 2, they have to take a foreign language, and you know what that does? It doesn't leave you time to go to career centers. It doesn't leave you time to become a welder or a tradesman. And so the Michigan Merit Curriculum, that's one thing that does need some flexibility. Another area, veterans. We hear it on the news all the time. It's all over the place. Oh, now they're going to make a big thing where now they can get in if they've been on the waiting list for a month. Now, finally, they're going to allow other doctors, maybe out of network, to become maybe in network for veterans so that they can access the benefits that they truly deserve. And I think we need to start with our local offices. Charles Scott, right here in Branch County, does a fabulous job. You ask any veteran out there, and they give him all kinds of kudos about the work that he does. And I think that we need to give our local offices more resources to be able to help our veterans out there access those benefits. And I tell you, one of the simplest things is transportation. You know, here's the benefits, they just can't get there. So we need to help our local veterans offices. And then the other thing that has not been touched on in anything that we've talked about, and that is our prison system. Right now, as I go out and about, I have a number of people that I know that work in the prisons, and you can't imagine how much waste is going on in the prisons because it's a one-size-fits-all. Okay? We have this amount of money coming down from the state. You have to use it for this right here. But you know what? Our prison in Coldwater doesn't need this. We need this right here. Oh, well, if you don't spend it on this, then you know what? You're not getting your money. You're not getting your budget the next year. And I just think that's wrong. I think if you've got a need and you've got something that you can fix, and you are the person that is doing the job day in and day out, then you should be allowed to utilize that money that way. So 3 things for me.
Thank you, candidate.
Michigan is on a comeback, but we continue to face an excess amount of regulations with the state. We also continue to face a relatively high tax burden within the state, and we need to continue to reform those things. As a legislator, looking at that regulatory burden, starting with roads, well, we have this thing in Michigan called prevailing wage, and that drives up the cost of road projects in Michigan. It means that in Branch County and Hillsdale County, that they have to pay the same kind of wages that they do in Wayne County or in Kent County. Not because it's justified in any way, shape, or form. In many cases, it may be double what the actual local wages are. So consequently, that regulation makes the cost of road projects in Michigan significantly higher. We also need to look at that we are a border district. We share a border with 2 states, Ohio and Indiana. In fact, for the first 4 years that I was a county commissioner, I was the only county commissioner in the entire state of Michigan that had a district that bordered on both Ohio and Indiana. Every time that we look at taxation rates, talk about raising the gas tax, well, we are already at a 6% disadvantage with Ohio and Indiana because we collect sales tax on gasoline. It makes gas much more expensive. And you can drive down 69 and buy gasoline for less. Beer and soda. We're at a $2.40 per case disadvantage with surrounding states. And again, they're 15 minutes down the road. And so we continue to need to look at, whenever we consider policy, how it affects, in particularly for this district, the surrounding states, and to make sure that we don't pass new legislation that increases that burden, and we work diligently to remove any that makes it harder for us to compete here.
Jeff, again, how do we continue the economic recovery and what's your role in it?
This is one of those issues where it's hard not to start to get redundant. Regulatory reform, crucial. We've got regulations on top of regulations on top of regulations. Half of them are from 50 to 100 years ago that aren't even applicable anymore. Onerous taxes. We tax the living daylights out of everything. We are a border state, a border district. We've got 2 different counties that it's too easy to jump south into Ohio and Indiana. We saw it back in the 80s when the terminology was last one up, turn the lights out. It's very difficult to compete in that manner, which is one reason why it's crucial. It's very confusing, but I strongly recommend everybody vote yes on Proposal 1. We need to remove the personal property tax on business equipment. Michigan Municipal League has signed off on it. The state's going to basically replenish all the money that's lost to the local municipalities. It's confusing, but it's a good piece of legislation. The other issue, we need to do a twofold thing. Ultimately, we need to help education. We need help education in the realm of careers, skills, and trades. We do have jobs available that we just cannot fill. A great example is what used to be Mark I Nylon Craft on the other side of Jonesville. Over 80 jobs. They've got a line coming on October 1st, and they cannot fill the jobs. You start fair, like Brad mentioned, you start at $15 an hour, you add up fairly quickly, next thing you know, you can make upwards of $90,000 a year. These are good jobs. We also need to encourage workers to go out and make the transition. We need to take a serious look at our entitlement structure. Too often, through lackadaisical regulations, the public sector is competing against the private sector for employees. We need to turn around and create a better, fluid transition from aid into the private sector and into those jobs that are open. Thank you.
Tim, how do you keep that economic ball rolling?
Well, first of all, we need to take a look at diversifying our industry. We cannot be so tied to the auto industry. When the auto industry goes down, look what happens here in all throughout the state. Okay, everything goes down. I agree with these guys here about the personal property tax, and I do encourage you to go out there as a business owner who has paid tax on something that I bought and then turn around and I pay tax, I pay tax, I pay tax. It just doesn't make sense. So I definitely agree with that. Another area that we really need to take a look at, and that is electricity, energy, ways that we can power our plants, ways that we can be more cost effective. Michigan has the 4th highest electric rates in the country. Okay? Consumers in DTE charge enormous rates. Now in Branch and Hillsdale County, and especially in Coldwater and Hillsdale, we got a huge advantage to bring business here right now because we have our Board of Public Utilities who then can negotiate with businesses to come into our community because electric is generally one of the top costs that they have. And that is a huge advantage. So again, The electric rates, our energy resources, we need to continue to explore hydropower, solar power, different ways of powering our manufacturing, because those are fixed costs. If those can go down, then you're going to see the resurgence continue here in the great state of Michigan.
Let's head down the table here to Stephen. I told you I was going to jump around a little bit. And how do you keep the economic ball rolling here in the state of Michigan?
I got a lot to say. I'm going to say it quick. One, repeat, deregulate. We need to deregulate in a lot of things. Now, there are regulations, don't misunderstand me. There's regulations out there that are good regulations. In other words, do not commit murder. That's a good regulation. Okay, unfair taxes, that's a bad regulation. There's others as well. Number two, we need sound morals and ethics. Without them, we have bad decisions made all the time. Number three, laws, something that bothers me because I've seen it hurt a lot of local business owners, is laws that favor foreign residents that come in here and get special tax breaks. We should be taxing them. Since when do you, for instance, invite somebody into your home and say, hey, you're going to get stuff for free, but everyone else in the family's got to contribute? Okay, I don't think that's very fair. So we need to start taxing these people. Another one is social assistance. If you're not willing to work, you shouldn't be willing, or you should not get assistance. So we need to get these people that are sitting at home that wait every week or month, whenever they get it, for their paycheck to come in the mail from the government. We need to get them up and working. There's jobs out there. And what happens is these kids, and being someone who works in the school systems and who's been to a lot of different schools, these kids are learning like probably about 5 years old, 6 years old, saying, what do I need to work for? My mom just gets up and goes to the mailbox and gets her check every week. Okay, I don't need to work hard. I don't need to do anything in school. I'm just going to rely on the system. Old proverb, give someone a fish and they'll eat a meal for a day. Teach them to fish and lay for a lifetime. So that's a very true proverb, and I think it's a Chinese proverb. So we need to teach these people how to work and how to value work, because I see a lot of jobs out there, like even McDonald's here on, it's a ways from here, but it's on US 12 on Jonesville. It says we're hiring for all positions, and there's a lot of signs out there, and these kids, they won't apply for the positions because it's work. One of the students told me that I want to get a job where I can go and work, and I'll get paid and not have to work. I got more, but you can talk to me afterwards.
Congressman Weiser, keeping the economic ball rolling.
It's good to remember the progress that has been made, because we really are still having our own private recession here in this district. There's no question about that. We had our own private depression in Michigan a few years ago, didn't we? It was not just a blip. It was a depression, really. And the tide went out, and it went out a long way. It's going to take a while for it to come back. But let's think about what's going to help it come back. Let's think of some of those improvements that were made under the leadership of the governor and Senator Caswell, Ken Kurtz, Representative Shirkey. Balanced budgets 4 years in a row. They've paid down unfunded liabilities by $16 billion. What that does when you show leadership like that is it gives you better rates on your bonds, it lowers your borrowing costs, it lessens the debt on future generations. And it also takes you off that list of the Wall Street Journal death spiral states and puts you on the list of states that people want to look at when they're looking at their businesses. You do some of these other things we mentioned, lower the regulatory burden of excess or unnecessary regulation, keep us competitive with the border status that we have here, and the tide starts to come back. It can't come back fast enough, we know that. This district is hurting. No one knows it better than I do. We lost Pontiac, we lost Oldsmobile, we lost half of our business. So if you vote for me, you're voting for someone who knows how tough times have been. And you also know someone who's seen people rally around and do what they could because they love this area and they want to see it come back. And the goodness is still there. Our location is still here. It's actually easier to take a gallon of milk from a farm in Branch or Hillsdale County to Denver than to get it from California. We should be feeding this whole area agriculture. Huge. I'm so proud to have the Farm Bureau endorsement. That's a quarter of our jobs in the economy that can't go away, can't be downsized, can't be shipped away. We need to build on that too. Thank you.
Councilman Dunnigan.
I don't think it's the legislation's job to create jobs. Heard that time and time again since I've been in high school and looking at politics. I think it is the legislator's job to create an environment so that entrepreneurs can create jobs. With that in mind, I think one of the things that Brad brought out, and you did as well, Rochelle, was with the education. I think we need to incentivize and encourage apprenticeships through places like the Branch Area Career Center, and start training our young people, because not everyone, I don't know if my son plans on going to college. I don't necessarily expect him to go to college. If that is his desire, I will full-heartedly push him that way. He may just want to be a good mechanic. He may just want to be a good electrician. And that does not necessarily require an a degree from a bachelor's degree. So I like the fact that we have the Career Center here, and I want to encourage that through incentivizing and encouraging apprenticeships. Agriculture has been a huge concern, and I've talked with a few people and looked at their information, and one of the things that they're saying that would help them would be some immigration reform. One of the first questions I got asked in this building tonight was, what do you think about immigration reform? And it is a concern for our state because we are a border state, but because I know from personal experience, I had someone tell me at one of the plants that I worked with that on the wall of a restaurant in Mexico, it said, if you need a good job, go to Sturgis, Michigan. And they did. 2/3 of the workforce was Hispanic and half of them only spoke Spanish. My point with that is that we do need to work on the immigration reform to help our own citizens get the jobs. And then, as many have said, reduce taxes. I think it's great that we've incentivized the business here in town to continue growth with the greenhouse. And some have told me that that's a negative thing because it's hurt our city taxes, but it also is bringing extra jobs and strength to our local economy.
At the beginning of this year, we had 9+% unemployment. And so I tried to study up on what are the forecasts for the future. And one report said, oh yes, we're going to improve. And they had asked 1,000 people what their opinion would be. But if I go to the Optimist Club and I ask them 1,000 of the optimists whether our economy is going to improve, of course they're going to say yes. Looked at another study, it said that the forecast is that we are going to have tougher times. But I've been going door to door, and one of the things that I've heard, because I've been going door to door partly because if you're going to represent people, you should at least kind of know what they look like, right? And have met some of them. So one of the employers in our community has said, but I have such a difficult time finding skilled labor in this area. And I believe that part of the reason is that we are taking our skilled labor and they're finding better jobs in other places. So this is what I intend to do. First, as I go door to door, I remind people that Proposal 1 is on the ballot for August 5th. So even if you don't vote for me, please vote for that. Are you hearing? Yeah, okay. And the next thing that I do is I remind people that in November, Carl Levin is retiring. And so we have about But I also believe that it is important to create an environment that is small business friendly. And our particular family is looking at investing more and more into small businesses just because the economic landscape of Michigan is so volatile, even yet, is so tenuous. And we need to develop more opportunities for people to have small business and to expand those small businesses. And another thing I'd like to see is the development of natural gas. We have, estimates are that we have 500 years worth of natural gas just in Michigan. And if we could develop natural gas, the cost of energy would come down, and I think that we would have a better economic structure. Thank you.
On to question number 3 for our candidates. There's been talk about an additional 1% of the sales tax for gas, raising the actual gas tax itself. What we're looking from you now, what are your specific solutions for long-term financing for the repair of our roads? We'll start with Eric, and we'll kind of work that way around.
It's been alluded to earlier, as a board district, what we cannot do is become uncompetitive with Indiana, Ohio. Simply put. It's just too simple, too easy to buy gas cheaper across the board. We have to benchmark what the other states are doing for our roads, for their roads. And in my business, we do it all the time. I get a report card from General Motors constantly. This is how many Buicks you sold. This is how many Buick dealers in town your size is supposed to sell, and so forth. Good job, attaboy, you're not so good, or whatever. So we have this data. We just need to make sure we're being smart about this and benchmark our competitive states. Winters are just as bad in Ohio and Indiana and Illinois as they are in Michigan. Blacktop costs the same. You know, snow plows run the same. We should be smart about this and figure out how to get the most bang for our buck and wring every possible savings we can out of the situation that we've been dealt. Again, it's a big problem. It's going to take a long time to serve or to fix, but we need to start now because it's only going to get worse. We need to consider savings such as taking the federal money and Bruce Caswell alluded to this earlier. Sometimes it's better to actually take the federal money, flip it back to MDOT, and come back to the county because you can pave more miles of road than you can operating under the federal rules. We should look at rules that don't make sense and get the most bang for our buck in that regard. So we just have to get creative. We need to look at every option. I've not been in the hearings. I've not dug into the data as much as some have, but I will tell you, we need to be smart about this, be competitive about it, and we need to start, and we need to do it with the lightest possible burden on our citizens, because we are heavily taxed already. We don't need to go there.
Thanks, Steve. The answer for our roads here in Michigan.
The answer first starts with something that's not the answer. Don't raise taxes. Okay, we can't endure any more hardships from what we've been experiencing already. Secondly, as I already mentioned, social assistance. We have a lot of money that's going towards social assistance. And I think if I quote this right, and I think some of these guys are here as well, when Caswell described to us what is available in Michigan, we have like $50 billion, something like that in the Michigan budget. About $40 billion of the dollars is already spoken for in ways that you can't touch it. In other words, let's say the federal government says, we're giving you this money, but you can only use it for that. And if you don't use it for that, then we're not going to give you the money. So in other words, we can't use it for something else. So we got about $10 billion that we can use. And that's split up into different categories. One of the categories that I think that we need to take a closer look at is the prison system. Okay, last time that I looked, the prisoners, we spend more money per prisoner in the state of Michigan than we do on, let's say, the average for, say, a 5-year teacher. Okay, so we care more about the prisoners than we do about teachers teaching our children or the money that we're putting into schools. To me, that sounds a little off balance. And what we can do is we can cut some of the things that are going on in the prisons. I believe that they get too much, in my personal opinion. They have too much access to TV, weightlifting, bettering themselves educationally, which is a good thing. And there's a lot of things that they have access to that maybe they shouldn't. And what they should have access to is they should have access to going out and cleaning up neighborhoods, working on roads, learning new trades, such as landscaping or learning masonry work. So that way when they get out of prison, they can find a job because they learned something in prison and how to use it and implement it. And something that needs to be taken a closer look at specifically is cruel and unusual punishment. At what point do we take a look at this and how our prisoners are treated and start understanding that it's not necessarily cruel, but it is unusual punishment that they get so much.
We'll head back down the other way. Brad Benzing, your answer to our state's roads.
I had the opportunity for 2 years to sit in county road commission meetings. Sat through about 100 of them. Got a very, very good understanding of where the problems lie. There's a rating scale used to rate the quality of pavement in Michigan. It's called Pacer scale. And a 10 is brand new road, and it grades down from that. Well, the M designated roads that we have in Michigan, those ones with an M in front of them, the average of them is about an 8. And what that tells us is the funding at the state level, at the MDOT level, is pretty good. On our primary roads, that's the roads that the County Road Commission takes care of, they receive dollars that come down to them, both federal and state dollars. The problem that we have with many of those dollars is they can't come with a great deal of regulation. Prior to 2008, we had a system in Michigan called buyout. Those MTF, or Michigan Transportation Fund dollars, the fuel tax at 19 cents a gallon on gasoline, 16 cents a gallon on diesel fuel, and vehicle registration fees, it's distributed out. But it has a regulatory burden that goes along with it. And so what the road commissions used to do is they used to actually sell it back to MDOT at about 70 cents on the dollar. But it got rid of things like prevailing wage and like having to do before you cut a tree down alongside the road so that you had to make sure there were no endangered bats living in the bark underneath that tree. So we need to go back to this idea of fully funding so we have an adequate amount of dollars available so that MDOT can buy those dollars back and get rid of that regulatory burden. The answer is not in raising taxes. Because very honestly, giving money to government is like giving alcohol and car keys to teenagers. They treat it about as responsibly. So the answer is not higher taxes. It's simply make those dollars we have go further.
As we're hearing here, I also cannot support raising taxes for roads. I cannot support raising taxes for roads because as it is, we're the 5th highest tax state in the country, net tax when it comes to a gallon of fuel. However, we're in the bottom 10th for investment in the roads, and we're also in the bottom 10th for states subsidizing the roads out of the general fund. So real quick breakdown. If we go to Myron fill-up, we're at $3.89 a gallon. That's 19 cents of that $3.89. Roughly 40 cents goes toward, 60 cents goes toward taxes. 40 cents goes toward the state. The rest go to the federal government. Now, the federal government, we cannot deal with that. But what we're dealing with the state government, 20 cents goes toward schools and general fund. 2.5 cents goes toward mass transit. Only 17.2 cents actually goes toward the roads. So the problem is we're not getting enough money toward the roads. So what we need to do is sit back and say, okay, we're in the bottom 10th of states that subsidize out of the general fund. Let's turn around and let's say roads are a priority. Let's take that $1 billion, that surplus that we had last year, and devote it toward the roads. Very easy to do. For instance, the state legislature back in April switched $450 million over to MDOT. Shortly thereafter, a couple months ago in the 14-15 fiscal budget, they moved over another $280 million. If you look at the $200 million we sent to the city of Detroit to give them their debtor in possession financing, and then $50 million that we send to the tax subsidies for the film credits, right there we're looking at $1 billion year over year. And as long as we've got the revenue coming in, we're going to have the revenue as long as we don't increase the cost side. So at the end of the day, we can put $1 billion, $1.2 billion in the roads year over year. We can subsidize out of the general fund. We can also make them do with more. The amount of waste is incredible. Example right up the road here. Time out. Thank you.
2 minutes goes quick sometimes. And finally, or not finally, but Tim on the side.
Well, I think they said a lot of the different aspects that you really are going to cover, and that is, roads are our priority. We didn't get here overnight, and we're not going to flip a switch right now and say, okay, we flip the switch and all of a sudden here's all this money and we're going to fix every pothole out there. As stated that, the cost of materials continues to go up. Our road funding remains flat. We can't tie it to a gas tax because you know what? That's just going to come back to us paying for that. If you put 40 cents more on, you put whatever dollar amount, whatever cent amount that you put onto a gallon of gas, we're the ones that are going to pay for it. If we could lower gas prices right now, if you could go to $2.50 a gallon or $2.25 a gallon even if you just went to $3 a gallon, how many people here would save that money? Well, you wouldn't. What you do is go spend it. You'd spur the economy. You'd get things going again. And I think no matter what we do, we've got to take care of our roads. We got 1.2 billion is the number. Mike Shirkey out there, you know, a plan of using X amount of unrestricted funds, and then take a look down the road as government cuts back. But you know, we've got a lot of money in our budget that can be used. We've got money to take a look at and really, you know, as we talk about things, you know, I guess, you know, you want to make a point, but you're just going to reiterate a lot of these different points. And I think that it comes down to, we can't tax our way out of this situation. We've got to take a look at the budget that we have. We got to use the money that's in the budget right now, and then go out there and make roads our priority and fix our roads so that as we travel the roads over this next week, we're not causing damage to our cars. You know, it's a safety issue. So there's a lot of things that need to be done, and roads definitely need to be the priority out there.
Michelle Ray.
Oh, thank you. I love teaching math, and I try to refrain from doing that, but I'm not going to tonight. We have a $50 billion budget in Michigan. $20 billion of that comes from or is tied to federal government ties. $19 billion of that is assessed for, it's collected for certain things, and it has to go to certain things. That leaves us with $9.9 billion left over that is discretionary, and those are the essential services like Medicare and some things like that. So, to receive that money out of the current budget would mean things like putting grandma back at home instead of at the nursing home, where she can get 24-hour care. Or we'll have to give up something in education. Currently, we raise approximately $1.2 billion for roads for MDOT through registration and fees and gas tax. What we need is another $1.2 billion to fix our roads. We don't have a place for that to come from. We have over 700 million registered licensed drivers. So that works out to about $200 per driver per year if we wanted to fix our roads. So your choices are, and it cost us $7.7 billion as citizens when we personally have to bear the cost of fixing our own vehicles, or we lose other things, other monetary things of value because our roads are poor. So the question is, do we want our roads fixed? And if we do, how do we want to pay for that? How do we want to see our taxes? It's kind of like potatoes with dinner. Do you want them scalloped or fried or mashed? And the question is, where do you want those taxes to come from? How do you want them to come from? Where do you want them to come from, and how do you want to see them? If we want our roads fixed, this is what we need to do. We need to improve our infrastructure, primarily so that we can have a better economy. And this is the dilemma that we have. Thank you.
Tackle our roads.
I don't think I could sustain $200 per vehicle. I've got 7 children, that's gonna be a lot of money. And I agree we shouldn't raise taxes. However, as I've gone door to door talking to people, I can't tell you how many people have told me they'd be willing to raise their taxes if they could just get their road fixed. That doesn't mean they want the taxes raised. They're just saying they're tired of the roads. So as I've looked at this since last October, and we went through that wonderful winter with all that snow, and I drove the roads going to the township meetings, I put a lot of thought into the roads, and I looked at the Act 51, and I looked at the townships and what they had to say about it. And for many years, the townships have said, we just need a redistribution of the percentages. The MDOT gets 39%, counties get 39%, and the cities and villages get 21%. And if we were to take those percentages and just do a flip-flop, you can look on my website, I did the math from last year's numbers. If you just flipped the numbers, our district would have received $1.5 million more dollars. And it goes back to what I said to begin with tonight. You handle your money better than the state does. The townships are the ones that are having to spend the money and having to put the roads and fix them. Let's put it in their hands instead of the state of Michigan with MDOT.
All right, is your brain boggled now from all those numbers? And there are a lot of them to tackle, obviously, and a lot of good ideas about it. Well, candidates, we told you we would discuss some social issues, and we'll do that in our next question here. And one question that keeps popping up is same-sex marriage. Where do you stand, and how would that affect your vote in Lansing? Start with Jeff.
How do I stand on same-sex marriage? I believe that marriage is simply between a man and a woman. End point. Thank you.
Brad Benzing?
Currently, there are 12 states that have had their one man, one woman, excuse me, one man, one woman constitutional amendment or law overturned. And that question now remains with the federal courts. There are 19 states that have recognized same-sex unions or some format thereof. So the question as a legislator really at this point has been taken away. So what we really need to look at is how do we go forward with the question. Because right now it appears that Michigan's constitutional ban on same-sex marriage is going to be overturned. And based on historically, there has been no state where it has stood. So the question comes, as a legislator, what should our position be? The position should be simply that we need to bolster the ability of religious organizations to define marriage and to protect our clergy so that they can make a proper decision in how that they want to react to the position of both the federal courts and the state courts in regards to how marriage is defined, so that we do have a system that equally recognizes people, but yet at the same time respects the religious beliefs of individuals and protects our clergy. Thank you.
The question was, where do you stand on it? Do you want to follow up on that at all real quick? I get extra 30 seconds here.
I'm married, however, that I do believe underlying anything in the United States and the Michigan Constitution, and consequently we do have equal protection under the laws, and so consequently we do have to equally protect individuals. And so my stand is if the federal courts rule that the United States Constitution says that two individuals of the same sex may be married, then we do have to respect that position. So my stand is that we have to respect whatever the definition is under the Constitution. Thank you.
Thank you for the follow-up. Appreciate that. Michelle? Again, the question was, where do you stand on same-sex marriage and how would it affect your votes in Lansing?
I very definitely support traditional marriage as being between one man and one woman. The one man and one woman is very important. Once we branch out into redefining marriage, we also branch out into redefining not just the kind of union, but we also branch out into, again, the question of how many unions will there be. And I'm very supportive of traditional marriage.
Again?
Before becoming a politician, I am a Christ follower, and I believe Scripture states what marriage is to be. It's between a man and a woman. I will defend that because I believe our Constitution, and I respect and understand what you're saying, Brad, but I believe the Constitution is based on scriptural principles. And if you, as Stephen alluded to earlier, if you have no definition of what is moral, then you can't make laws. So either it is or it is not defined as being between a man and a woman. And if you don't define it that way, then what is a family? I have a lot of children and several of them are still young. And as I've talked with people about this issue, the people that lean towards allowing homosexual marriages, it sounds to me as a definition of Barney. We're all one big happy family, no matter how you're defined in that system. And I refuse to allow anyone other than Scripture and my Christ, my God, to define to me what definition of marriage is because He incorporated it.
I'm glad we're talking about this tonight. I had a, what they call a telephone town hall the other night. We called thousands of people out, maybe some of you folks, to hear what their thoughts were as a way for me to visit with some people that maybe hadn't had a chance to talk to. And that question came up. And this is the answer I gave on that town hall. Marriage, I said there is no such thing as a same-sex marriage per se. Marriage is between a man and a woman. There are such things as people in same-sex relationships that want to have protection of certain rights and privileges of marriage. I want to be able to visit someone in the hospital. I've been with this person, I've been living with them forever. We want to settle our estate. There's some things, but you notice what's happened is we've taken what is a civil contractual problem and hijacked a moral 1,000-year-old definition. They've taken a word that's meant something and tried to cram it into something else. And even people who and I'm sure we all have friends in the homosexual community that say they just want these rights. And we would want them to have those rights. But you can't give some group rights by having them degrade, or not degrade, that's probably the wrong word, but having them usurp a word that's meant something for thousands of years. So same-sex marriage becomes almost like a contract law, just two willing parties. Why not three? Why not four, like Rochelle said? We don't want to go there. And we should look at ways to strengthen our position so we stand firm on this. So when a judge comes along, we can say, this is the will of the people. You're going against the will of the people. And we're not going to let it stand. Thank you.
Thank you. I believe in scriptural principles as well. Marriage is the definition between a man and a woman. Not only that, but looking at a definitional standpoint, it is the definition of a man and a woman. And let's just compare definitions for a moment. Definition of a little geometry lesson. Definition of a square. Definition of a square, you have 4 equal sides, 2 parallel sides, and 4 90-degree angles. Definition of a circle is all points that are equidistant from a center. So, what you have in society when you have same-sex couples that want a marriage, it's not possible. What you're looking at is you're looking at a bunch of circles who are wanting to be squares. And I'm sorry, you just can't have a square circle. It's not possible. So, if we were to accept the fact that marriage is, the definition of it is between a man and a woman, and then we have same-sex marriage, what you end up having is you might have a bunch of legislators who just committed intellectual suicide. Okay? It's not possible. It's not logically possible. It's not even coherent. So what it is it's more of it's something that they desire, they want, and it's a few, it's a minority. Secondly, what happens if we do accept it? It causes devastation. If you take a look at Canada, start looking into some of the social issues that they have over there because of the changing of marriage between a man and man, a woman and woman. You have issues where 2 women on their marriage certificate and they adopt a child and they're both listed legally as the father. Both women are legally listed as the father. And so you have issues where that doesn't even make sense to begin with. And then what happens if they have a divorce? Okay, who pays alimony? What happens? What happens to the child? Secondly, from personal experience, I have spoken with children in public schools who have been in situations like this, and they're confused. And lastly, all the evidence out there shows and demonstrates that the kids who go through these circumstances, they have a lot of behavior problems and mental issues from not having a mother and a father.
Tim Hartnell.
Well, I was raised in a family that traditional marriage between a man and a woman. And I think that it benefits society, it benefits future generations. A loving man, a loving wife, together raising children, I think is the thing that we need to be concerned with in our society. I think we need to support that all the way through. And I go with the Constitution too. I mean, it's a simple issue. You get up and say a traditional marriage is between a man and a woman. The Michigan Constitution defines it as a man and a woman. Thanks.
All right. We're running close to 8 o'clock here this evening. We hope to get you out of here fairly close to 8 o'clock tonight. We'll have closing statements from the candidates here in just a couple of minutes. But one final question, I guess, and we'll just kind of open this up. And whoever wants to comment, whether you're a full 2 minutes or just real quick here. One that also keeps popping up in addition to the same sex is Common Core in our schools. The legislature has approved the dollars for Common Core. There's still the debate going on, the fight going on, and a few of you have touched on it. Are there any candidates who would like to touch base on that Common Core issue in our education? All 7 of you? All right, probably. Let's start with Rochelle, and we'll work down this way and come back the other way.
I fail to understand, if Common Core is so wonderful, why the federal government has to pay us to implement it. Common Core, when we used to teach Sunday school in our churches, we chose a curriculum, Gospel Light material, and the Gospel Light material would be tested on a core group of students the year before it was released throughout the nation. And that was for Sunday school, 1 hour a week. And I'm having a really difficult time understanding how come the federal government thinks that it's a good idea to unleash something that has never been tested across our nation so that we can all sink or swim together. We are 50 states. We need to be 50 state experiments. And if something is good in one state, we can adopt it. And if it's not working in a state, then we can skip over it and try something else. There are other issues that I have with Common Core, but primarily, those are big enough right there to have us do something different with it. Thank you.
Other than the fact that I want to repeal it, the reasons for that is because I don't believe it's teaching 2 + 2 = 4. I think it's teaching philosophy. If you look at a lot of the tests and what they're trying to teach, especially on a historical level and social issues, they're teaching philosophy. And I take offense at that as an Abe Lincoln reenactor. I take offense at it as a parent. I want to teach my children certain values. Don't cram it down their throat because the leftist has a progressive idea of what they want to teach.
It's been mentioned before. These things that come from the top down, this overreach that we have. Common Core probably has some good things in it. I have friends in the public school community that tell me there's some things in it that make some sense. I have talked to people door to door that tell me that it is a nightmare. It's making them actually want to quit teaching. The parents are frustrated, the students are frustrated, and the teachers are frustrated. Well, those are the 3 constituencies that we should be worried about. We shouldn't be worried about the Department of Education or Bill Gates or some of these other people. We should be worried about teachers, parents, and students. Those 3 things they did not ask for it. It came along from the top. And this is sort of an overreach issue that we face in our time. The federal government overreaching onto the states overreaching onto local jurisdictions. And that's why it doesn't feel right. We didn't ask for it. It came from above. It kind of reminds me of this occurred to me with the safety net that we have in this country. With Social Security and so forth, there's a safety net. We're going to catch people that are falling right through the cracks right in the safety net. The problem with the safety net is you have some people with a lot more safety, but everyone has a lot more net. And this money comes with strings on it and tangles you up. And it's not the way we're wired. So that's all I have to say about it. I have a minute left. I'm going to give it to you. Thanks.
One part I didn't introduce about myself, I am a teacher at Jackson College. I used to work, I'm adjunct, so I'm part-time, but I used to work full-time hours, then Obamacare hit, and then I work part-time. And then I've been substitute teaching. So I substitute teach and then teach at the college. And from my experience and from what I've seen, what I've studied about Common Core, there's a lot of problems with it. Too much to explain right now. But one of the biggest issues is Common Core has a set of standards. Those set of standards are unalterable and unchangeable by the government, by the community, by parents, by teachers, by administrators. You can't touch them. If you go to Common Core's website, scroll down to the bottom and you'll see a copyright symbol. Copyright means we own this. You can't change it, you can't do anything with it. So you're stuck with whatever Common Core decides you have. Now, right now, they have a friendly version. If you look at the standards, I've read through all of the standards, every grade level, every subject, just to see what they have, trying to find something to pit against them. And they did have stuff, but the thing is they changed it. And they've taken the old stuff out and they put the new stuff in, so you can't really find a fault in it. But what you can find a fault in is how it's tied to the government. Now, the government was, from what I understand, from someone who testified to the House and Senate in Lansing, he's a lawyer in Lansing, and he was explaining to me some of the issues behind it, and there's data mining involved. So it's not really the Common Core. Common Core is great, it's just a bunch of common standards. Well, backdoor, what you have is you have it tied to these other issues like, hey, we're gonna start keeping track of who you voted for. Did you vote Republican, Democrat? What religion you go to, what church you do, what your parents voted for, relationships, are you male, female, and then I have heard, although I haven't verified this for sure, is that it's also going to be attached to Common Core, or excuse me, Obamacare with the health standards. And so there's your health standards and some personal things are going to be kept track of in this huge database that they built this thing for NASA. And by the way, that was convenient how they passed the law, sorry, not NASA, NSA, to build that big system to keep track of a bunch of information, then Common Core hit, and then we have Obamacare. There's a lot behind it, a lot behind it.
Tim Hart-Haverhill?
I think you'll find that we all agree up here that none of us are in favor of Common Core. And if you take a look at the states that have adopted Common Core over the years, Indiana, they adopted it, used it for years. They're one of the first states to get rid of it. And that should tell you right there. There's somebody that has tried it. And the centralized government control of our education does not work. It doesn't allow for creativity. It doesn't allow our teachers to teach. Teachers teach to a test, okay? And, you know, not always are you going to have the same students in the classroom. You know, I coach high school soccer at Quincy, both boys and girls. And you know what? Not every year are you going to have these great players that can do very well in your classroom. And so you've got to maybe try different things. You've got to do other ways of teaching kids. And if you've got Common Core, you're not allowed to do that. Now, the other thing that comes into play here too is, well, it costs a lot of money. Okay, let's spend some more money and change our curriculum. And who's going to pay for that? Us? Exactly. And again, putting more money in and taking it out of our classrooms, I don't think that's the answer. And I think we really need to take a look at this, and I think that, you know, my opinion, as with others, I'm not in favor of Common Core, and I would like to see it repealed.
Once again, bordering on redundancy here, I would also like to see Common Core repealed. I do not agree with top-down federalization of the curriculum. Washington, D.C. bureaucrats, bureaucracy on top of bureaucracy on bureaucracy, generally don't get anything right, and consequently, moving all of our education to a top-down does not work, which is why we should actually go back and get rid of the Federal Department of Education, but that's a whole other deal altogether. Taking the state individually, one size fits all does not work. What works for Branch and Hillsdale County is not going to work in Hamtramck, and what works in Hamtramck is not going to work in Traverse City. We need to move as much of the curriculum making back to the parents, the teachers, and the school board, and maybe a little bit at the state level, but we could probably do away with that also. Here's the concern, though. The concern is this is something that we need to do fairly quickly. And why is expediency important? Expediency is important because there are a few teachers out there who are starting to say, well, we're doing it now. We're doing it now. We didn't like it at first. We still don't completely like it, but we're teaching toward the test. We've implemented it. It's working. We don't want to have to change again. That's the problem. So therefore, before that attitude becomes more and more prevalent in the public schools, we need to get this cancer out of the public schools and return basically the freedom of the curriculum making to the local school boards.
How many of you have more than one child? Bunch of you. Do they learn at the same rate? Are they all the same? And the answer really quickly is, because I got 3 of them, no, they don't. But that's what Common Core really is a common curriculum with standardized tests for common outcomes. And it just doesn't work. We have to look at what we are doing with education in America. And what we are doing today is not working. It's just that simple. We have a very, very strong federal government. We have a federal Department of Education, which trickles down to the local level. And what we are putting forward today is simply not working. Children cannot read. They cannot write. They cannot do simple computation. And so what we are doing is not working. We need to return control back to the local level to allow local school districts run by local school boards to make the decisions on the curriculum that they will offer, the textbooks that they will teach from, and the type of education that our children will deliver. So yes, I think it's unanimous. We're all opposed to Common Core. We would most likely all agree that we should repeal it. I would agree with that 100%. And we should allow local school districts to make local decisions with the taxpayer dollars that are entrusted to them on the education that they are going to provide to our children.
Okay, thank you. I would like to see a lot of things change in our society. I mean, ultimately, I'd like to see heaven on earth, and I know that's really not going to happen. But where it starts with is it starts with you guys. It doesn't just happen at the legislative level. And I would encourage you to get to know and investigate all the candidates, not only in this race here, but in every single race, so that you know who it is you're voting for. And if you could, invest with me in the vision to make our society good once again. And what type of person I'd be, I would fight for good things. I would be a voice of reason, and I would stand up for everything that's good. Thank you for your time.
Further comments from Mark Wood?
Thank you for being here. Thank you to the other candidates. This may be the last time we're in one room for the next week. I'd like to thank you for a very civil campaign. Good people. We've talked about some serious things tonight. I want to let you know I am optimistic. I'm a hopeful person. I'm serious when I have to be, but I'm lighthearted whenever I can be. And I am excited about this opportunity in our state, in this campaign. If you are looking for someone who's fiscally conservative, I'd ask for your consideration. I've had a successful business for 30 plus years. If you want someone to defend your constitutional rights and stand up for sanctity of marriage, right to life, I'm your candidate. If you'd like to have someone who knows the district and would like to represent it border to border, I was born and raised here and would pledge to take good care of you. And finally, the other side has got a room full of people who believe differently than we do. It's time for us to put our strongest team on the field and get Governor Snyder reelected. And I've asked for your vote so I can be part of that team and go to work for Branch County. I'll do a good job. Thank you.
1 minute closing comments, Al Nunn.
I have an aunt that is a strong Democrat. Ironically, she's supported me emotionally through this process, and one of the things that she said to me early on was, Hal, what happens when you get elected and the people in your district disagree with you? How do you vote? I said, I have to listen to the people, except for 3 things, and that is the right to life, the right to bear arms, and my definition of marriage. Those 3 things I won't change on, but other things, I'm game for listening, I'm game for understanding where you believe, and I would have to come to you to understand what you want on various issues. And I've done that, I've proven that over the last 5 months. I've gone to your door, I've gone to your meetings, and I have listened. And through that process I have learned. And I believe that I can take that learning into a room to collectively work with other people, the other 109, and make something happen to continue our state into a good process of becoming a state that can show the rest how we as a nation can be better.
Hi, Hi, it's been a pleasure to be here, and if I have not met you yet, please shake my hand on the way out, and thank you, candidates. This really has been more fun than I had anticipated. I support the Constitution, both the Second and the First Amendment. The First Amendment has some really cool stuff in it that makes the Second Amendment able to be supported so easily. And also support traditional marriage, sanctity of life. I'm supportive of business, and I would like to promote business and agriculture. And it has been a joy to be with you. I love being called Rachel Ray as well as Rochelle Ray. Never thought that would happen, but I'm just having a blast meeting you all. And I hope that you choose on August 5th the person that helps you sleep the best at night, knowing that they're your representative. Thank you.
Tim Hart-Haverhill, closing comments.
Well, I will tell you that in my years in business, I have firsthand experience in stretching that dollar, and I think we need to continue to do that in Lansing. I will always be out there to listen to you. I'll always make time. My cell phone number is on all my literature. It's on all my cards. It's on my website. It's on my Facebook, because part of being a state representative is listening to your community, listening to the people, taking advice, what are the concerns, what are some of the issues that need to be accomplished, and I promise to you that I'll always be available. I'll always be there to listen and understand what's going on. I'll always know both sides of the issue before I make an educated decision out there. You know, I cherish life, I cherish my family, I cherish my friends, and I'm looking forward to working with a lot of you people out there. And you know, I guess my final thing is I would ask you to put your heart in Lansing and you know, choose me next Tuesday. Thanks.
I appreciate the opportunity to be here. I would definitely love to talk to anybody about various issues when this is over. I would also appreciate if somebody would, some individuals would grab some of the letters on the way out. The reason for that is it outlines some basic principles. Pro-life, pro-conventional marriage, pro-Second Amendment, religious liberty, economic freedom. These are the principles that I believe in, and this is important. Because ultimately, when someone does go to Lansing, I think you need to listen, you need to interpret, and you need to weigh everything you hear against those principles and then go from there. I hear often, as I visit people around both of these counties, I hear a lot of apathy and I hear a lot of depression. And that's, it's unfortunate, but on the same token, I think we can change that narrative. And I think we can change that narrative by reinterpreting it as a few energetic people can still make a difference. And I believe we can. As I had mentioned when this debate started, I believe I have the experience and the energy to help make a difference. Thank you.
Experience and record will matter in who replaces term-limited Ken Kurtz. As a county commissioner, I have an established voting record, voting time and time again against higher taxes. I have a votive record defending the sanctity of life, something highly unusual at the county commission level. I have a votive record defending the Second Amendment. Additionally, I have more than 2 decades of work in the legislature in crafting policy, testifying before committees, and working legislation through the process. I have a long established record of constituent service, as well as customer service. And I am ready to take that to the next level, listening to each and every one of you, helping you sort through your problems, and trying to find constructive solutions for them. I would ask you for your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen and ladies, here tonight. Thank you for coming out. So this is a very important election for the future of our state of Michigan, and all the candidates will be around for a little while afterwards for a chance for you to talk to them. We do also have material over there that you can pick up on the way out, including some questions that they answered at a previous forum. So they have those as well. They have yard signs out there. Big thank you to Sue Wahlberg, up front here. Thank you. And Senator, I stepped ahead. State Representative Mike Shirkey. But if you don't like what they said, I mean, you still got these on you, right in mind. My wife would kill me. Thank you all for coming out tonight. Some closing comments here from Mark Brady, our Sheriff Party.
Thank you, Ken. Thank all of you for coming tonight. We really appreciate it. And you should be able to have a better idea of who you're going to vote for on August 5th, I hope. But what I really would like to remind you is, as you know, we've been videotaping this whole forum. And it will be on the Branch County Republican Party's website and the Branch County Republican Party's Facebook. As you go to the Facebook, like our page, please. Anyway, we wanted to remind you of that. So if you have any questions or you can't remember what a candidate said, go to those two sites and the videotape will be there. Thank you very much.